The first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima.
Over humanity!
The fires of frustration and discord are burning in every
Let us
city.
not forget for a moment the toils and efforts that lie ahead.
They say that those who forget their history are condemned to repeat it. This is the History Lessons Podcast with certified financial planning practitioner Patrick Huey, author of History Lessons for the Modern Investor, and your guide to financial wisdom in the past, present, and future. You ready? Good. Let's get historical.
Historical? Oh, yeah. Well, this is the History Lessons Podcast for the week of 6 May 2024. I'm Patrick Huey, author of History Lessons for the Modern Investor. And if you're a modern investor seeking some historical perspective these days, you're in the right place. This week, we'll be talking about racing odds, Yogi wisdom, and the alphabet soup of taking QCDs to fulfill your RMDs from your IRAs.
But first, the news.
Well, down the stretch they came on Saturday in the Kentucky Derby, and it finished with a breathtaking photo finish. Well, my pick finished a distant 18th place, and that, friends, is why horse racing is for entertainment purposes only. Let's saddle up together and review the entertainment from last week's economic data. Well, like fierceness, one of the pre-race favorites at 7-2 odds, the ISM non-manufacturing index is fading big time down the stretch. The index declined to 49.4 in April, missing consensus expectations and falling into contraction territory for the first time in 16 months. Remember, non-manufacturing is the largest portion of our economy, and it's contracting. The ISM Manufacturing Index was the opposite of long shot, 32-1 odds, resilience, which finished a respectable 6th place in the field. That index fell back into contraction territory at 49.2 in April. And that marks 17 out of the last 18 months in contraction. There's nothing, I mean nothing, resilient about that. Domestic product, 27-1 odds, predictably finished toward the back of the pack. And it doesn't take a genius to see the metaphor here. As a sign of our own domestic product, April saw non-farm payrolls increase by just 175,000, falling short of consensus expectations and marking the slowest pace of growth so far in 2024. Finally, you may have heard the Federal Reserve met, and their comments put the mystic in Mystic Dan, 18-1 odds, raising more questions about who is holding the reins on inflation than they actually answered. Now, while some speculate about potential rate cuts in the future, the Fed remains cautious, emphasizing the need for further progress towards its inflation objectives before they make any decisive moves. Like Mystic Dan, I hope they win this inflation battle without raising rates further or riding higher rates for longer. But the odds, they don't appear to be in their favor.
Interest rates are rising, and your annuity purchased in the last decade might not be keeping up, which means your financial plan may be falling behind. So if you own a deferred annuity, fixed, indexed, or variable worth more than $250,000, now is the time to review it and make sure it is doing all that it can for you and your financial plan. Let us help you keep your retirement on track. Introducing Victory Independent Planning. VIP turns complex financial matters into clear and confident solutions, so you can relax and enjoy retirement whenever it arrives. Get the Annuity Review Kit now. This complimentary kit includes a variety of checklists, resources, and ebooks to review the fees, features, and flexibility, or lack thereof, in your current annuity contract. It will even help you assess your overall investment goals and the people who are offering you advice. Get the kit today, because you can't teach an old annuity new tricks. To learn how VIP can help you review your annuity, click on the link in the show notes or go to victoryindependentplanning.com. That's victoryindependentplanning.com. Sign up for peace of mind today.
Alexa, charge the Wayback Machine and set it for 1925 AD.
Charging Wayback Machine.
On May the 12th, 1925, Lawrence Peter Berra is born in St. Louis, Missouri. Yogi Berra, born May 12th, was an American professional baseball catcher, coach, and manager. He's best known for his long and successful career with the New York Yankees, where he played from 1946 to 1963. Berra was a key player in the Yankees dynasty, winning 10 World Series championships as a player, the most in baseball history. And he was renowned for his exceptional catching abilities, his quick wit, memorable phrases known as Yogi-isms. After his playing career, Berra transitioned into coaching and managing, leading both the Yankees and the New York Mets. He continued to be a beloved figure in baseball, known for his affable personality and his contributions to the sport. Yogi Berra was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1972, and he passed away on September 22nd, 2015, leaving a legacy as one of baseball's greatest players and personalities. But as Berra admitted in the title of his 1998 book, I really didn't say everything I said, at least not originally. Here are some of Yogi's most memorable sayings, original or otherwise, and their lessons for investors. Number one, it ain't over till it's over. This classic Yogiism reminds us that patience is often key in investing. Markets can be volatile and it's easy to get caught up in emotions. However, successful investors understand the importance of staying focused on the long term. Investing is always a long season. There's no telling exactly what the future holds. After all, quote, future ain't what it used to be, end quote. Number two, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. In investing, there are often multiple paths to success. Don't be afraid to explore different investment opportunities and take advantage of the diverse options that are available to you. Be skeptical of the new hot investment that everyone is talking about because, quote, no one goes there nowadays. It's too crowded, end quote. Number three, you can observe a lot by just watching. In investing, as in life, sometimes the best option is not to do anything. Yet we are driven by action. Indeed, there's a mental bias called the action tendency that we've inherited from our nomadic ancestors. Always acting without thinking will eventually lead to, quote, making too many wrong mistakes, end quote. Number four, it's like deja vu all over again. Look, while history doesn't always repeat itself exactly, there are certainly patterns and trends that investors can learn from. By studying the past, you can gain valuable insights into how markets behave or misbehave. I mean, quote, if the world wasn't perfect, it wouldn't be. When it comes to lessons from Yogi's history, in theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. Yet in practice, there is. Okay, I'm more confused now than when we started.
Wayback Machine disengaged.
Returning to the year 2024.
Finally, this week, it's on to the mailbag.
You've got mail.
This week's question of the week was, should I take QCDs to fill my RMD from my IRA? It's a mouthful. Remember, if you're listening to this podcast and want to see the visuals referenced during this segment, please join us on Substack, where you can view the video version of this podcast, or on YouTube, where you can do the same. I was working with some longtime clients. We'll call them Bill and Jane. And I asked them about their charitable giving. I was pretty confident they've been giving to their church for years, but I wanted to make sure they still were. This used to be a lot easier back in the days when you listed your charitable giving in your tax returns. But since the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 1617, we've had to ask the question, are you actively giving to charity? Because most people do not itemize their deductions. So the good news is they still were giving to their church, a fairly significant amount. And Bill had recently turned 73 years old. So I asked if they knew about the provisions for a qualified charitable distribution. I got the glazed look in the eyes, and they said no, they had not. So I asked if they'd be interested in saving about $2,500 in federal income tax if I could show them this strategy. And to no one's shock or surprise, they were very interested in saving some money off of federal taxes. So let's take a look at what QCDs are, and then I'll come back and finish this story with Bill and Jane. Qualified charitable distributions. Here's a brief overview. QCD was introduced as a provision in the Pension Protection Act of 2006. Remember that one? Probably not. Initially, it was set to expire in 2007, but it was extended several times and was finally made permanent by the Protecting Americans from Tax Hikes, PATH Act of 2015. I swear they just do this so that we have to go and get continuing education for all this stuff that they put in as a one-time and then end up keeping in there. But I digress. A qualified charitable distribution allows individuals age 70 and a half or older to donate up to $105,000 per year currently directly out of their IRA, and that's a key there, directly out of the individual retirement account to eligible charitable organizations without including the distribution in their taxable income. So you get to do a contribution, not put it in your income, as long as, number one, it comes directly from your IRA, and number two, you give it to an eligible charitable organization. Okay, so it's great for tax efficiency. QCDs offer a tax efficient strategy for retirees who are subject to required minimum distributions from their retirement accounts. Instead of taking the RMD as taxable income, individuals can fulfill their charitable intentions while reducing their taxable income by donating, here's that word again, directly from the IRA. QCDs facilitate charitable giving to the philanthropic organization by enabling retirees to support causes they care about without incurring additional tax burdens. Think of it this way. Instead of taking money out of your IRA, paying tax on it, and then giving it to a charity, you just cut out the middleman and the taxes. Tax advantages, okay? QCDs provide tax benefits by reducing the taxable income, like we just talked about, lowering overall tax liability for individuals subject to RMDs. Translation, a QCD could reduce your adjusted gross income and thus lower your tax bracket and how much you pay in taxes. They also offer simplicity. It's a fairly straightforward method for fulfilling charitable intentions without the need to itemize your deductions. About 99% of taxpayers now don't itemize deductions. So if they're making charitable contributions, they're getting no tax benefit from it. But this makes it an attractive option for retirees who are seeking some simplicity in their financial and their tax planning. So some benefits, other benefits, you can avoid the potential 25% penalty that's imposed if you don't take your required minimum distribution. Again, this fulfills the RMD. So you won't get penalized for missing an RMD if you use the QCD. I know, it's a lot of acronyms. You don't have to itemize deductions on your tax return to deduct a qualified charitable distribution from your taxable income. Hallelujah. Here are a few cons. Donation has to go to a qualified charity. Qualified charity. Named a 501c3 by the Internal Revenue Service. Make sure that you are checking that. The donation must come directly from the IRA account. We just talked about that. Cannot withdraw the funds and then make the donation directly. That's a no-no. You're going to pay taxes on the distribution. The maximum annual QCD is now $105,000. And a QCD cannot be claimed as an itemized charitable deduction on your taxes. Not only shouldn't it, but it can't be, right? So you can't take the QCD and itemize it on your deductions. That's double dipping. again, that's a no-no. So limitations. QCDs are subject to specific rules and limitations. Of course they are. It's the IRS. Why wouldn't there be rules and limitations? There are age requirements. You have to be 70 and a half or older. Now, no, right? You don't have to be 70 and a half to take a required minimum distribution anymore. RMDs start at age 73. Well, you still have the option to do qualified charitable distributions once you hit 70 and a half or older. And it's not the year you hit 70 and a half, it's actually 70.5 years. You have to wait for 6 months after your 70th birthday, and then you can do a qualified charitable distribution. There are annual contribution limits. Right now it's 105,000. They are scheduled to go up. And eligible recipient organizations are qualified charities, excluding donor-advised funds and private foundations. So you can't double dip there either by taking a qualified charitable distribution, parking it into a donor-advised fund, and getting the tax benefits there. It's a one and done. It's got to go direct to the qualified charity. Some other cons of this is the documentation required. It's not as streamlined as it should be. It still requires some manual steps to get a check and then forward it on and report it all correctly on your taxes. So just beware. There are going to be a few steps, a few hoops you have to jump through. And you want to make sure that when you take this QCD in next year on your taxes, that you're letting your tax preparer know that that's what you did. Or you're making sure that in your tax preparation software, you know how to report this correctly. Otherwise, you're just going to end up paying taxes on something you don't need to. And that is not optimal. So in conclusion, qualified charitable distributions, they offer us a tax efficient and straightforward method to support charitable causes while potentially reducing a retiree's taxable income. Okay. However, individuals considering QCDs should carefully review the eligibility criteria, the limitations, and the potential impact on their overall financial situation. Obviously, if you need the required minimum distribution to live on, we probably shouldn't be giving it away. It needs to be part of an overall comprehensive financial plan for your retirement. Consulting with a financial advisor or a tax professional, or go ahead and just get both with someone like me, is recommended to determine if QCDs align with your philanthropic and financial goals. All right, let's go back to Bill and Jane and see how their decision progressed with the qualified charitable distribution. Okay, Bill and Jane, do you have a traditional IRA, inherited Roth, SEP IRA, or simple IRA? The answer is yes. Bill has an IRA, and I want to say at the time it was about $350,000 or so. Maybe more, maybe less, which will affect the calculations later. But for argument's sake, we'll say $350,000. Bill, are you going to be at least 70 and a half at the time you plan to make a qualified charitable distribution? Well, yes, he is. We already said he was 73. And looking at his own required minimum distributions beginning, and that was why we started to look at a QCD to begin with. Okay, so is the IRA actively receiving any employer contributions, SEP or simple? It is not. Bill has been retired for quite some time and is more than happy at this point to be living off of those, off of his pension actually, and really not using the funds that come from his IRA. Okay, back to the flow chart. Is he married? Does he file a joint income tax return? He most certainly does, right? Married to Jane for quite a while. So we move on down the flow chart. The dollar amount of his total QCDs cannot exceed $210,000. This is a good point. You can actually double the minimum amount of a qualified charitable distribution for each taxpayer. So if you're filing jointly, you get $105 per taxpayer. You could do up to $210,000. Now, as we just said, Bill wants to contribute like he has been to his church, which was about $10,000 a year or so. So he's not really looking to do a huge contribution like this would provide him. So this can satisfy his required minimum distribution if he's subject to one. Okay, be mindful of first dollars out rules. So you want to make sure that you are not using an IRA to which you contributed post-tax money, or else that's going to come out first. And the cumulative amount of any deductible IRA contributions would be reduced if that were the case. Okay, that is not the case for them. It's all pre-tax money. So we're skipping down. Is the recipient a private foundation or a donor advised fund? Yeah, it's actually a church. They are a 501c3. And we know then that, is the recipient a private foundation or a donor advised fund? The answer is no. They are a qualified 501c3, and they are eligible to receive these QCD funds. So yeah, Bill's eligible. We can go ahead and use the qualified charitable distribution. In his case, his required minimum distribution was about $10,500. Okay, so $10,500 is what they decided to then send as the qualified charitable distribution to their church. Now, they were in the 22% bracket when this occurred. So their savings is just a little bit over $2,200 in federal taxes for doing that qualified charitable distribution. Listen, I've been talking to a lot of clients about this lately because it's an easy way to be very mindful of your tax situation as well as your charitable giving and give something while getting something. Well, my fellow historians, it's all for this week. Be sure to check out my book, History Lessons for the Modern Investor. That's available on Amazon.com. And hey, if you want a complimentary copy, just reach out to me. I'm happy to send you one. And be sure to do all the social stuff too, like this episode. Follow us wherever you see or hear your podcasts. We're available on Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Until next week, we'll take another rollicking romp through the past and make an investment in your future with history lessons for the modern investor.
See you next week.